What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 2 of an intro series where I'll be explaining the Jumpstart rule set for Cyberpunk Red. In this episode, I'll quickly be covering skill checks. If you watched last time, you know this is all leading up to our first playthrough live on November 2nd for Extra Life at twitch.tv/SlightlySaltedSquad. Well, that's enough of that, let's get right into it. So what are skill checks? Skill checks are roles that your GM or Game Master will have your character make when you're doing tasks that aren't normal and everyday. For example, driving down a street in normal traffic does not require a skill check. Driving high speed down a road, dodging cars and swerving in and out of traffic will require a driving skill check. Ultimately, this comes down to the Game Master's decision of if a check is needed. A basic skill check is going to be a D10 roll plus your base stat related to that skill, so for example, reflex for driving, and then any points you have trained in that skill. For example, let's take a look at Nobad, who is a racer. She's going to roll a D10, add her reflex, which is plus 10, and then her driving skill, which is plus 7. So automatically, she'll minimally score a 17 plus whatever she rolls on the D10. Of course, that's a basic skill check. There's a range of modifiers that can come into play that alter those rolls. For example, critical success. If you roll a 10 on your D10 roll, you get to roll that D10 again and add that new value to your existing roll. You cannot critical success more than once on the same check. You can also critical fail, however. If you roll a 1 on that D10, you roll again and then subtract that value from the initial roll, which is a 1. You can also have different modifiers depending on the GM's discretion and the circumstances surrounding that skill check. For example, if I'm Nomad and I'm racing through the streets but I've had a few drinks, I could suffer a penalty, for example a -4 to that skill check. But the question is, did you succeed on that skill check? This is determined by the GM having a predetermined difficulty value, or DV, you are rolling against. For example, there's a chart in the Jumpstart Kit that lists through challenged, everyday, competent, heroic, incredible, and legendary ratings of difficulties. Depending on what you're achieving, the GM will set that value and you're rolling against it. If you meet or exceed that value, you're successful in your action. Let's say, however, the skill check you're doing is against another player or NPC, for example, bribery. Instead of having a determined difficulty value, the person you're trying to bribe is going to roll against you. In the case of a tie, the defender always wins. If you're looking to increase your rate of success, however, you can use what's called a complementary skill check. Certain skills that might go together can increase your odds of being successful. For example, having a really good bribe might benefit a persuasion check. If you do one of these complementary skill checks, that allows you a +1 on the main skill check. Another option is to be taking your time. For example, picking a lock. If you spend 4 times the amount of time it normally takes, you can add +1 to that skill check as well. The GM can have you make skill checks that you're not even proficient in. For example, if I pick up a gun but I'm not trained in marksmanship, I can still make a check to shoot the gun. I roll a D10 plus my base stat. I'm not as likely to succeed since I don't have any training in that, but I can still make that check. If I'm really desperate to try to make sure that's still a success, that's one of the best times to use your luck points. As a reminder, you can use the allotted luck points you have to add +1 for each point spent. Those points in luck do regenerate every game session. One of the differences around skill checks for Cyberpunk Red Jumpstart Kit compared to other tabletop RPGs is the sense of cultural familiarity. So even if you don't have a trained skill, for example sword fighting, you roughly know how a sword works based on education and things like that, that you can get bonuses to it. So this is determined based on your education level. For every 3 points you have an education skill, you get 1 point bonus to these cultural familiar things. Swinging a sword, driving a car, shooting a gun. So it really does benefit you to have higher points in education. And there you have it. Those are the basics of skill checks. We're going to be covering net running in a future episode, so stay tuned, but for now, you're pretty much set to do anything you want in the physical world. Stay tuned next time for episode 3, where we're going to be covering combat in Cyberpunk Red Jumpstart Kit. And of course, this is all leading up to our live playthrough on November 2nd for Extra Life, live at twitch.tv/slightlysaltedsquad. But thank you for watching, and until next time, stay salted.